Do you ever feel like you're missing the mark as a person or a spouse or a parent, but you're not sure what you're aiming for? I heard this quote the other day: if you aim at nothing, you hit nothing. Today, we're jumping into this and exploring how you can take your life to the next level by aiming in ways that you haven't yet done. Stay tuned. Welcome back, my friends, to Fulfillment Therapy, where we explore strategies for enhancing your mental health, your wellness, and your life fulfillment. I'm your host, Kendra Nielsen, and today we're talking about the transformative power of embracing progress and becoming the person you are meant to become. So, this episode is inspired by the quote: if you aim at nothing, you hit nothing. And that's from the movie Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings. I was watching that again the other day with my kids. Some of them are getting more into Marvel as they get older, and I remembered how much that hit me that first time. It really highlights the importance of having direction in life and not just existing. Like the character in the movie, for example, she had all of these gifts and these talents, but she was just wasting it. She was just existing and not becoming her best self. Maybe that resonates with you. Maybe you feel like you are not becoming who you were made to become, and it feels overwhelming to even know where to start or feel like there's even any time for that. If you feel stagnant or overwhelmed or just stuck, you are not alone. I still feel like this sometimes, and it requires regular reevaluation. I want to start by sharing a story that one of my clients recently talked about, where she felt like she was just going through the motions, both as a spouse and a parent, and she lost touch with her passions. She really did feel unfulfilled despite her best efforts. And so when she was looking online, she found that I worked with people with similar struggles, and she felt like she needed to talk to me, get out of this rut. As we started to work together, she said she woke up one day and she just felt like she was tired of those excuses. She was tired of keeping herself stuck. So she decided that she was ready to put in more effort. Like we talk about the readiness of change stages, and she was ready to move forward in those stages. Now, she had a lot of things going on, but for her, it just started with those small steps of incremental change, which eventually led her to rediscover her love for teaching. But how did she get there? What were those little steps? And how did she have success this time when she didn't before? We'll come back to that story later. First, I want to talk about something that comes up with almost every client, and I'm sure it's come up with you, and that is embracing that progress over that perfection. Like checking that perfectionism at the door because it does not serve us, nor does it improve our relationships. Again, this is about focusing on those small, tiny steps instead of striving for that perfection. And Tony Robbins said this: your past does not equal the future unless you live there. When you acknowledge and celebrate your victories, even if they're small, then you can build that momentum towards that personal growth and fulfillment. So I want you to think about a time in your life recently when you really celebrated those small successes. A quick story personally was last night I was feeling a little discouraged that I'm tired at night and I don't always want to engage when the rest of the family wants to engage, and they seem to come alive with energy while I'm just draining by the minute. And then I was like, wait a second, let's celebrate some of the victories. I read to my son when I haven't done that for a while. Sometimes he doesn't want to, sometimes I don't want to. I pulled my oldest son aside and we looked through his baby pictures and we just laughed and had fun. My middle child, I played a card game with her and really tried to connect with her. And my other child was out of the state. So it was a major win for that one on one time. And yet I didn't stop to celebrate that. I instead just focused on what I wasn't. And I know that we all do that. So, as parents, this might also mean recognizing the value of learning from our mistakes and using them to grow. And it might also mean breaking down something scary into those small steps that over time will lead to those big things that we want so much. Like maybe it's joining a support group or writing a list of personal gains and sharing it at dinner with your family. It doesn't have to be huge. So, the second thing I want to talk about is becoming who we were meant to become. That can feel like a big statement, and yet it also helps us remember that, hey, we've got one chance at this life. Becoming who you were meant to become involves aligning your actions and choices with your core values, with your aspirations. John Maxwell has a lot of amazing quotes. I love this man. And he said, anyone can steer the ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course. So decide to be that leader, decide to chart that course and win in ways that other people don't because they are not willing to pause and chart that course. So when we focus on personal development, for example, like listening to these podcast episodes, doing the things that will take our lives to the next level, or signing up for the courses that I have, or coaching, any of those things. Maybe you signed up with a therapist. You can uncover your true potential and create a more fulfilling life by doing those small things. Another simple example is a spouse might take time to reflect on their passions and values so that they can make sure that the things that they are doing are in alignment with who they want to be, with their future goals. Now let's talk about mindset, because we can't talk about this without focusing on that. Mindset shifts will help us embrace that progress and that growth. Maya Angelou said, you may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. We all experience hardships, right? Maybe we've been abused. Maybe we have a spouse that spends a lot of money. Maybe our spouse has an addiction. Maybe we have an addiction. Maybe we're perfectionists. Whatever those things are, we don't have to be reduced by them. They can be catalysts for change. They can be that fuel that we need. When we adopt that growth mindset, it can help us overcome those obstacles and stay motivated toward our journey moving forward, towards growing and becoming. For example, instead of falling to pieces about the power struggle you have with your child and all the challenges there, you might instead view it as opportunities to practice your patience, to tune into that child's needs, to reevaluate your parenting style, and to grow in the process. Again, these don't have to be setbacks. These are part of the journey and part of what will make us stronger. Another quick example, maybe you've had a fight with your teen or even your spouse recently, and you find that you're making a lot of excuses and blaming them. You can decide today to make that shift, to start owning your part, to change that family dynamic. Instead of staying stuck in that shame or that blame or that defensiveness. Or you can even recognize that your excuses for not leaning into your fears are only holding you back. There's an opportunity here to normalize your fear and to see it as a chance to face it and to thrive. Now let's talk about creating that supportive environment so that can happen. Brené Brown said, it's not about what can I accomplish, but what do I want to accomplish? What does she mean by that? Because I had to read it a few times. What she's saying here is that if we slow down a little bit and get still and really examine if what we're doing aligns with our values and if it really will help us and our family members become who we're meant to become, then it's something worthwhile. And if not, we can set it aside. Yeah, we can accomplish it, but do I really want to accomplish it? When we discover those things that matter more, we can start communicating with our loved ones and asking for that mutual support and be there for one another to help each other reach those goals. For example, I talk about our family councils that we have every Sunday. We try to do this for one another. Yes, it is talking about our schedules, but it's also talking about our goals, our priorities, really why we do those things week to week and how we can support each other. Now, do we always do that successfully? Of course not. But that is our main goal and the thing that we continue to shoot for. But the important part here is to slow down enough to understand what it is you want and why, and then communicate to others those same things so that you can have that mutual support system, not just for you, but so that they can do the same thing as you model that for your kids and even for your spouse. Now, all this is very nice and beautiful, but how do we sustain that momentum? It requires consistent effort and that self-reflection, because without that self-reflection piece, it doesn't happen. It reminds me of my power hour. As soon as I start to slack with my power hour, and I've talked about that a lot before, if you don't know what that is, it's about 5 or 6 steps, and it takes 1 hour to do all of the things that are scientifically backed that will help us become our best self first thing in the morning, like reflection, meditation, movement, writing, those kinds of things. But I'll go back to that in another episode again. Another thing that John Maxwell said is that commitment is the first step to every good thing. So if you're going to commit to Power Hour or commit to that self-reflection, it's important to plan it out and create a habit that you can sustain. Again, I've talked about this before, and so has James Clear and others. But if you want to keep that habit, you anchor it to something that you do really well and regularly, like brushing your teeth. Like maybe you can put your toothbrush and a rubber band around your little journal, and you know that you don't brush your teeth until you write in your journal. Something along those lines that will be a constant reminder, and you know you're going to follow through with every time. With that consistent self-reflection, that's when we start to see the progress and we can start to celebrate those achievements. That's how we sustain our motivation and continue to grow. I want to go back to the story of my client. When she was ready for that change, when she stopped making excuses and started to break it down into small steps, she started to see that progress and really did start to become the best version of herself. She was able to find that greater fulfillment and purpose in her life. And she just loves teaching. I love how she talks about it when she shares those wins. And she often feels so much more energized than in the past when she wasn't doing that, when she was sitting in that fear and too afraid to move forward. So, what are you afraid of? What are you avoiding? What's preventing you from becoming your higher self? How are you blaming and getting defensive and deflecting instead of leaning into those things that will bring you greater fulfillment in the long run and even in the short term? So, the key takeaways from this episode, and again, inspired by that quote, if you aim at nothing, you hit nothing. Embrace that progress over perfection. Become your best self by aligning things with your core values and by slowing down enough to be intentional and breaking it down. Shift your mindset and see those obstacles as opportunities for growth and that fuel that you need, like that discomfort that is so annoying and terrible that it propels you towards change because you don't want to sit there anymore. And then when you also do get still and break that down in your Power Hour or otherwise, when you find those small incremental steps that you can take, communicating that with your loved ones so they can support you and that you can support them, and you're modeling that for your family as well. And then last but not least, sustaining that momentum by reflecting on your progress, celebrating those wins with your family, and not getting stuck and just chasing that next thing, but recognizing the beauty in what you are creating, what you have created, and how that ripples out and affects everyone in your life. And what a beautiful thing that is. My friends, I really do understand how uncomfortable it feels to feel like you're stuck, that you don't even know what to aim at in your life. You don't know where to go. Again, get still because I think that you do know. It might be buried in that busyness, but there is a space inside of you that knows that next step. So get intentional and write it down and start to open your mind and your heart to it. It will come if you're patient, just like when you're looking for a house and suddenly you see all the houses all around you. When you open your mind and your heart to the possibility of moving, the same thing will happen with this. Thanks for joining me again today on Fulfillment Therapy. Don't forget to check out our life-changing courses that will help you either create an online business and grow passive income and spread those positive ripples by beginning your own podcast, the very beginning stages to the very end. We have 3 of those courses for you. Or on the other side, we have 3 mental health and wellness courses, which are Ignite Your Life, a personal growth course, Mend Your Marriage, a marriage course, and Heal Your Home, a parenting course. These are 3 ways that you can take your life to the next level in 12 weeks for each of those wellness courses. And I give you 10 times what other people give you out there, and they are so affordable. So check them out on fulfillmenttherapy.org. As always, my friends, I will see you back here every Monday and Thursday with a new episode. Until then. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you, no matter what your house or your hair looks like. I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.